This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
You're watching the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening all. I'm Shashina Roll-Parkinson. As always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping news, the Ministry of Health monitoring the deadly coronavirus that is sweeping across the globe. The ministry maintains that there are no suspected, confirmed, or recorded coronavirus cases in the Bahamas. The latest numbers released state that there are 2 persons in quarantine and 28 persons who were released from quarantine. A laboratory with the capacity to test for COVID-19 has been established at the National Reference Laboratory in New Providence. It is part of the Ministry of Health's ongoing COVID-19 preparedness and response plan to ensure optimal readiness and response to the virus. Now, the latest global statistics show over 111,362 confirmed cases worldwide. 63,392 have recovered and 3,892 persons have died from the virus around the world. Now, once again, there are no confirmed, reported, or suspected cases here in the Bahamas. Well, meantime, the uncertainty surrounding the coronavirus had some sectors taking precaution. They believe that it is better to be safe than to be sorry. Among them, the Christian community. Italia Hall outlines some of the changes implemented by the Catholic Church in the face of what some are calling a potential health crisis.
There are several guidelines that are now in place within Catholic churches across the country as it relates to gatherings for worship. According to Archbishop Reverend Patrick Pinder, the guidelines are by no means to indicate that the country is in a crisis, but it is to exercise an abundance of caution and to be proactive and responsible in the face of the current reality. The guidelines are, all of the holy water stoups will be emptied at the church doors as well as the baptismal font. The distribution of the blood during communion is temporarily suspended. Physical contact, such as handshaking during the sign of peace and holding hands during the recitation of the Our Father, is temporarily suspended as well. For the time being, communion will be distributed in the hand and not on the tongue. Eucharistic ministers should thoroughly wash their hands before and after the distribution of communion. The celebrant is to use a verbal greeting and refrain from physical contact while greeting parishioners before and after Mass. Parishioners who have respiratory flu-like symptoms are encouraged to stay at home. Now, the Archbishop notes that as circumstances change with regards to COVID-19, the guidelines will be modified. But in the meantime, believers should pray for those who have contracted the coronavirus in other countries and that they be restored to full health. Italia Hall, ZNS Network News.
In other news, the managing director of the Disaster Reconstruction Authority addressing the issue of burial of storm victims over in ABACO. Speaking at a press briefing in the nation's capital on Sunday, K. Forbes Smith confirmed that a team from the coroner's office out of Nassau were expected to travel to ABACO today. The authority has asked members of the Bahamas United Funeral Home and Morticians Association and the Bahamas Christian Council to take carriage of the organization and the planning of the burial in conjunction with the authority. Additionally, Forbes Smith noted that tomorrow, the Disaster Reconstruction Authority's technical team, led by its chairman, Wendell Grant, a civil and structural engineer, will be in ABACO to determine the exact location for the burial on the site already identified. Forbes Smith says during the process, the Christian Council and the Mortician Association will meet with family members of those presumed dead to discuss any specific consideration or concerns they may have regarding the burial. Now, the authority says the remains of the unknown will be placed in individual graves. The managing director also noting that in the coming days, a date will be announced for the national service for the families. At last report, a total of 74 bodies have been found since the passage of Hurricane Dorian. 11 from Grand Bahama and the remaining 63 were found in ABACO. Well, police say thanks to an intelligence-led operation, they have cracked a shop-breaking ring. This morning, the men believed to be responsible were hauled before the court to answer the charges. Italia Hall has the story.
Superintendent of Police and officer in charge of the Central Division, Alvardo Dame, says from April 2019 to February of this year, there were a number of criminal matters reported to police. These matters include shop break-ins and stealing from vehicles.
As a result, active investigations was conducted, which led to the arrest of 3 males. 3 individuals were interrogated, and subsequently the items that you see behind me were reported stolen. They were recovered as a result of these interrogations. These individuals led a team of officers to recover these items, and hence they were all charged with particular offenses of shop breaking, stealing from vehicle, and stealing and placed before the court.
Carlton Simonet, age 44 years of Pioneers Way, and 49-year-old Stork Bennis of Jackfish Drive were arraigned before Deputy Chief Magistrate Debbie Ferguson in Magistrate Court Number 1 on 3 counts of shop breaking and 2 counts of stealing from a vehicle, 5 counts of stealing from a shop, and stealing. They both pleaded guilty to all charges, with the exception of 2 charges. Simonet and Bennis were sentenced to 35 months behind bars for the charges they pleaded guilty to. The other 2 matters were adjourned to June 22nd. Now 28-year-old Navarro Devon Roll of Fair Park Street, Ridgeland Park in New Providence, was arraigned before Magistrate Charlton Smith in Magistrate Court Number 2 on 4 counts of shop breaking and 3 counts of stealing from a shop. He pleaded not guilty to all charges, and the matter was adjourned to the 19th of May for trial.
Some of the items that were recovered were like 2 55-gallon drums that contained some chemicals that were used for a specific type of foam. These things are valued at some $6,500. Several 5 gallons of paints that was also stolen. We also have a number of items that have not yet to be identified. Some machinery items, and that, we'd ask that once you show to the members of the public that they can come at the Central Division, where we'd allow them to view the items with the intention, if they had something that they reported stolen, we may have it in our possession.
Now, he also had this clear message for persons who purchase stolen items.
Whenever someone steals something, there is a market or a demand for stolen property, and we will target persons who receive and purchase stolen items. This is just an example that we as police officers, we are deliberate and we are resolved to finding persons who continue to commit crime. We will find you, we will get you, and we will place you before the court, and justice will be served.
It's Talia Hall, ZNS Network News.
In news from the crime beat, the Department of Immigration charging 6 foreign nationals before the court last week for breach of the Immigration Act. Included in the group, 4 Haitian nationals, Donna Elaine, Aaliyah Sandy, David Toussaint, and Joseph Francis. They were all charged with illegal landing. They all pled guilty and were convicted and ordered to pay $300 or spend 1 year behind bars. They were also ordered to pay the fine and were handed over to immigration officials for deportation. A Colombian national and a Peruvian hauled to court to face similar charges. Elizabeth Bolivar and Loizea were charged with overstaying. They exceeded their visitor's visa by 91 days. They both pled guilty. The Colombian was ordered to pay $700 or in default spend 4 months in prison. The Peruvian was charged with $1,500 or 4 months at the Department of Corrections. Now, they were able to pay their fines and were handed over to the Immigration Department for deportation. They have since been flown to the capital to await deportation. Switching gears now, the condition of the roads in the Hudson Estates community, that remains a bone of contention for residents in that area, as well as parents of students who attend schools in that community. The deteriorating condition recently sparked outrage among some residents who have called for someone in authority to intervene. While the area's Member of Parliament, Frederick McAlpine, says residents have a right as well. The area Member of Parliament noting that the area is privately owned, but says the Port Authority should make it their priority to ensure that the roadworks are carried out in a privately owned area.
The Port Authority should put pressure on the owners of these subdivisions to make sure that such works in terms of road maintenance is carried out. And it is unfortunate because some of the people who are involved with the subdivision happen to be politically connected, and the roads have been that way for the last umpteen years.
However, he notes that there is good news on the way for residents of the area.
I'm happy to report that I had spoken to the minister when he was here some time back and asked for his assistance in this regard. I've been given a letter by the Minister of Works, the Honorable Desmond Bannister, who has assured me that there will be some road work done in my constituencies to some of the major areas that have been in need of road repairs. I'm happy that the government is seeking to assist me in this matter. I'm grateful for that, and I think the people of the Pine Ridge constituency would be grateful for that as well. But again, we would not have to, this does not fall on the port area. This should not fall in the hands of the government when you have the owners of subdivisions and you also have the Port Authority.
Coming up, down but not out, Pelican Point is preparing for the annual Coconut Fest. That story and a whole lot more when we return.